Unlike a lot of hunters, I've always accepted hunting. I grew up in a hunting community with hunters in the family. My dad and all four brothers hunt. I ended up marrying a hunter. So I've eaten game meat my entire life. That was part of our regular diet. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, so deer were splattered along the highways all the time. So I understood its value in population control. I didn't really understand hunting itself until I started accompanying my husband on hunts when we moved to Idaho. I'd always been a hiker, and it was always about going from point A to point B. Suddenly, when I was with my husband, it was more about the journey and peace and quietude, and I ended up finding that I saw way more animals than I ever did. I became to love the challenge and the unexpected and testing your body and just basically being in the wilderness. So although I didn't totally understand hunting, I at least came to understand parts of it. The real turning point for me, however, came when we booked a trip to Africa or to Tanzania. All of a sudden Rick was going to be hunting the animals that I had been infatuated with since childhood. It didn't seem the same hunting those animals as it did hunting deer and elk. I really struggled with it. I had a hard time and almost backed out of the trip. Ultimately, I did go. And over the days and weeks we were there, I started seeing things from a whole different perspective. And I came to recognize how important hunting is for the African nations, probably more so than the Americas for sure. The animals we worship from our living rooms are dangerous and destructive. The poor local people, often food insecure, have to live with these animals in their backyards. Elephants trample their crops and kill people who try to drive them off. Lions kill livestock and people when they get the chance. Their lives, quite frankly, would be way easier without the animals that we love. Hunters, at least by putting a value on the animals, gives them an incentive to protect them and find ways to mitigate the danger. It might not eliminate it totally, but they can find ways to do the best they can to work around it and protect the animals instead of just killing them to make their lives easier. Even more important than all that, however, is habitat. Africa is growing by leaps and bounds its human population, and that's put more and more stress on the habitat. Hunting protects habitat in its natural state, unlike so many other aspects of civilization. Phototourism is great and it's needed in Africa. They desperately want it there. But phototourists don't want to go to the places hunters go. They want easily accessible land, beautiful parks, tons of wildlife. They want hotels and swimming pools. They're not willing to spend the time and money to go to the places that hunters will. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that hunters hunt specifically to save animals. It's far more complicated than that, and some things that I'll never understand, or many of us will never understand. But I do recognize its value and its importance, and that we all believe differently. I've come to recognize that the sacrifice of a few animals at the end of their lifespan is far more acceptable when it ends up protecting animals overall and habitat they need to survive. As a non-hunter, I find I have to look past my personal belief and see the big picture to see what ultimately is better for conservation. So no longer do I just accept or understand hunting. Now I'm a passionate advocate. I fell in love with Africa. Its wildlife, its people, its land, and I want it to be there for all future generations. Consequently, I've spent the last 2 years of my life writing a book, trying to take others on the journey with me, trying to help them understand how we have to look past our personal beliefs and look at what is better for wildlife and habitat overall, because that's what's important. The end result, not the means by which we get there. My name is Sue Tidwell. I'm a non-hunter, and this is my views on hunting.